before time was measured, before kings ruled, before the first stone was carved, whispers of a great flood travelled across the world, leaving traces of a story that humanity almost forgot. This is the story of Noah's Ark, but not as you know it. Tonight, we uncover the hidden truths history doesn't tell you. The story of a flood, a catastrophic, all-consuming deluge, resonates through the oldest civilizations known to humanity. It is a tale as ancient as memory itself, etched not just in religious texts, but whispered in clay tablets carved in stone and painted across cave walls. Yet beneath the familiar narrative lies a deeper mystery. Why do so many cultures, separated by continents and millennia, recount a story of the same global event? In Mesopotamia, where civilization first took root, flood myths were not merely tales to explain nature. The Sumerians, whose cities rose along the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates, left behind cuneiform tablets describing a deluge so vast it wiped the world clean, sparing only a chosen few. Among these records, the Epic of Gilgamesh speaks of Utnapishtim, a man warned by the gods to build a massive vessel to survive the flood. The parallels to the biblical Noah are uncanny. These texts do not read like fiction. They bear the weight of observation, encoded warnings, and perhaps forgotten history. Travel across the globe, and the pattern repeats. In the lands of the Hebrews, the story of Noah carries echoes of divine judgment and salvation, a covenant sealed with a rainbow in the sky. In India, the tale of Manu surviving a great flood preserves the same core structure: a righteous man, a divine warning, and the salvation of life through a vessel. In ancient China, flood myths speak of Yu, who controlled waters and saved humanity. Even the indigenous peoples of North and South America recount deluges, stories of survival, warning, and rebirth. What could explain this universality? Was there truly a cataclysm that touched every corner of the earth? Or were these stories metaphorical, cautionary tales passed through generations to teach resilience and morality? Perhaps the truth is far stranger than legend, hidden beneath layers of time, overlooked or intentionally obscured. Archaeologists have discovered traces that hint at massive prehistoric floods, rivers that suddenly expanded, coastlines that vanished beneath rising seas, and sediment layers that speak of catastrophic events. Some researchers suggest that these floods were localized yet monumental, leaving deep impressions on the collective memory of humanity. But then there are anomalies, evidence that cannot be explained by regional flooding alone. Ancient coastal settlements submerged beneath the sea, maps of lost lands like Kumari Kandam in the Indian Ocean or Atlantis, echoing the idea that entire civilizations were wiped away. The earliest flood records, however, are more than just accounts of water. They carry warnings, moral lessons, and hints of secrets lost. The Sumerian tablets describe divine beings who judged humanity, not arbitrarily but for specific failings. They speak of human arrogance, the manipulation of knowledge, and the violation of natural laws. It is almost as if these ancient scribes were leaving us clues, encrypted messages hidden in myth, waiting for a time when humanity might decipher them. Consider this. If the flood were merely a story, why would so many disparate cultures share such consistent details? The notion of a massive vessel, the gathering of animals, a divine warning, and the survival of chosen humans appears too frequently to dismiss as coincidence. Even the dimensions of Noah's Ark, described meticulously in biblical texts, suggest a structure engineered for durability, stability, and long voyages. An ark not simply symbolic, but possibly grounded in practical knowledge lost to history. Yet, history has a way of obscuring the extraordinary. Over centuries, the flood narrative was reshaped to fit theology, morality, or political agendas. Symbols replaced facts. Legends replaced reality. The true scale of what happened and what it may have meant for humanity was buried beneath layers of interpretation. But whispers remain, waiting for those willing to look beyond the familiar story. These whispers speak of a world before the flood, a world of advanced civilizations, towering cities, and knowledge that rivaled modern science. Some myths hint at beings, divine, semi-divine, or otherwise, who intervened in human affairs, guiding, warning, and sometimes judging. Could the flood have been more than a natural catastrophe? Could it have been an orchestrated event, a reset designed for purposes that history prefers to keep hidden? Even in our modern era, geological evidence puzzles scientists. Certain regions show signs of sudden, massive water movements that cannot be explained by ordinary natural disasters. Core samples taken from ocean beds, coastal cliffs, and sedimentary layers reveal traces of abrupt, widespread flooding events. Could these be remnants of the same catastrophe that inspired the stories of Noah, Utnapishtim, Manu, and Yu? As we dive deeper into this story, we must consider what has been intentionally left out. Many ancient texts were altered, lost, or destroyed. Libraries, such as the Great Library of Alexandria, burned, taking with them accounts that could have illuminated the truth. Monuments eroded by time-hide inscriptions only partially readable today. What remains are fragments enough to suggest that the flood was more than myth, but not enough to fully comprehend its cause or purpose. And then there are the anomalies that science has yet to explain. Tools, artifacts, and structures submerged beneath oceans and rivers suggest the presence of civilizations far older than previously believed. Some ruins predate known history, hinting at a world suddenly lost to waters, leaving behind tantalizing clues. Circular foundations in the depths, stone constructions on now submerged continents, and strange alignment patterns that defy explanation. Could these remnants belong to the world that existed before Noah's Ark sailed into legend? Tonight, as we trace these echoes of history, one thing becomes clear. The flood story is not just a tale of rain and water. It is a story of survival, warning, and forgotten knowledge. It is a story that challenges everything we think we know about humanity's past, inviting us to question, to investigate, and to wonder. And as you listen, remember, if you find these whispers compelling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Whispers of the World, and comment below where you are listening from tonight. Your engagement helps uncover more of these hidden truths, bringing them back from the shadows of history. So, prepare yourself as we continue, for in the next chapter we will venture inside the Ark itself, beyond the wooden vessel described in Scripture, to explore secrets that may reveal not only how humanity survived, but why we were chosen to survive at all. The Ark, as we shall see, may not have been just a boat. It may have been a vessel of knowledge, a repository of life, and a key to understanding secrets that history has tried to bury. And only by examining it closely through both myth and evidence can we begin to piece together the truth. Imagine a vessel unlike any the world had ever seen, a structure so vast it could hold not just humanity, but the legacy of life itself. This was no ordinary boat. This was Noah's Ark. And tonight we uncover the truths history has hidden from us for millennia. The Ark is often imagined as a simple wooden vessel floating atop storm-tossed waters. But when we examine the descriptions left in ancient texts, the picture begins to change. The dimensions, materials, and purpose suggest something far more sophisticated than a mere boat. According to the biblical account, the ark measured 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Converted to modern measurements, that is approximately 450 feet in length, 75 feet in width, and 45 feet in height. A structure larger than most modern ships of similar eras. To comprehend the enormity of such a vessel, consider that it would have required precise engineering knowledge to ensure stability in turbulent waters. Its proportions were not arbitrary. They reflect an understanding of hydrodynamics and weight distribution. The ark had to withstand the forces of a global flood, waves possibly hundreds of feet high, and yet remain afloat. The texts speak of gopher wood, a material whose identity is uncertain today. Was it a rare, resilient timber known only to ancient civilizations, or is it a coded reference to a material we no longer recognize? Some researchers have proposed alternative theories. Could the ark have been lined with metals or resins to make it watertight? Some scholars point to natural substances like pitch, bitumen or resin used in Mesopotamian shipbuilding, suggesting the ark may have combined wood with advanced sealing methods. Such details hint at a lost technological understanding, a knowledge that ancient civilizations possessed and we are only now beginning to glimpse. But the construction of the ark is only part of the mystery. The purpose of the vessel and what it truly contained raises even deeper questions. Traditional accounts describe the ark as holding pairs of animals, food supplies, and Noah's family. But whispers in ancient texts suggest something more. The preservation of knowledge, culture, and perhaps even forbidden technologies. Could the ark have been a repository of humanity's earliest wisdom, safeguarded against the flood that would erase the world as it was known? Consider the logistics. To house thousands of species, the ark would have needed storage, ventilation, and waste management systems. Ancient builders would have faced the challenge of feeding and caring for countless creatures, each with unique needs. The sheer scale of the operation implies not just divine intervention, but extraordinary foresight, planning, and perhaps access to knowledge now lost. Could Noah have had guidance from beings beyond human comprehension, instructions embedded in the very dimensions of the ark? Across cultures, there are hints that the vessel was more than just a survival boat. In Mesopotamian texts, Utnapishtim's ark is described as a cube-like structure with multiple decks and compartments carrying all life in orderly arrangements. The Chinese accounts of great floods mention structures designed to protect seeds, animals, and sacred relics. Even in the Americas, flood myths describe shelters that preserve the essence of life, suggesting a universal understanding. Survival meant more than escaping the water. It meant preserving the blueprint of existence. Some theorists have even proposed that the ark may have been a floating laboratory, a vessel designed to sustain life while safeguarding ancient knowledge. Imagine compartments filled with preserved plants, seeds, and animals, alongside scrolls, carvings, or tablets containing knowledge of medicine, agriculture, astronomy, and engineering. This idea challenges conventional interpretations, yet it aligns with whispers in forgotten texts that describe the ark as a vessel of destiny, not merely a refuge. And what of the animals? How did Noah or the ancient survivors manage to gather every species? Modern scientists often dismiss this as impossible, yet the texts insist on it. Perhaps the ark did not carry every species physically, but rather genetic samples, seeds, or embryonic life preserved in ways we do not understand. Some ancient texts hint at selective preservation, suggesting knowledge of genetics, inheritance, and reproduction far beyond what we thought existed at the time. Could Noah have had access to methods of preserving life that have since been lost? The sheer complexity of this vessel raises another question. Why is the ark remembered so vividly across cultures? Why is it so central to myths and histories worldwide? Some scholars argue that its size, design, and purpose were meant to impress upon future generations the magnitude of the event and the foresight required to survive it. The ark, in this sense, is a symbol, but also a blueprint, encoded with lessons for those who might one day seek its truths. Archaeological attempts to locate remnants of the ark have long been controversial. Mount Ararat in modern-day Turkey has been the focus of countless expeditions. Sightings of unusual formations, wood-like structures, and even metallic fragments have sparked speculation, yet conclusive proof remains elusive. Some researchers suggest that if remnants exist, they may be buried beneath ice, sediment, or volcanic deposits, preserved in a state that could reveal astonishing secrets. Could the ark still exist, waiting to divulge its hidden truths to the world? Beyond physical remnants, the ark's story may also carry encoded knowledge. Some scholars note that the dimensions, proportions, and arrangement of compartments reflect mathematical principles and structural wisdom. The repeated emphasis on measurement and design in ancient texts suggests that the ark was not just a vessel of survival, it was a lesson in engineering, planning, and order. Could it be that by studying these proportions we might rediscover lost techniques known to civilizations long before recorded history? And here the whispers grow even more intriguing. Some esoteric traditions speak of beings who instructed Noah in the ark's construction. Were these divine messengers ancient scientists or visitors from beyond our world? Certain Sumerian texts hint at interactions between humans and beings of extraordinary knowledge, guiding the construction of monumental works, preserving species, and imparting wisdom. The ark may have been one of their most significant projects, a vessel ensuring continuity not just of life but of civilization itself. As we examine these possibilities, we confront the question of purpose. The flood was not merely a natural disaster, it was a reset. And the ark was not merely a lifeboat, it was a safeguard, a time capsule, and perhaps a seed of future knowledge. The details of its design, construction, and contents invite us to reconsider what history has told us. What secrets were preserved on the ark that history has never revealed? And why have these truths remained hidden for thousands of years? Tonight, as you listen, imagine the ark in all its grandeur. Its decks lined with creatures, its chambers filled with life and knowledge, bobbing atop waters that covered the earth. Picture the care, the planning, and the hidden wisdom encoded in every plank, every measurement, every compartment. This was not simply a story of survival, It was a story of foresight, intelligence, and secrets carried through time. If the whispers of this tale intrigue you, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Whispers of the World, and comment below where you are listening from tonight. Each engagement helps us uncover more hidden histories, bringing these secrets back from the shadows of time. In the next chapter, we will explore the survivors of the flood, the humans, animals, and perhaps even the knowledge that survived. We will uncover secrets of lineage, survival strategies, and hidden wisdom passed down through generations. For the Ark was only the beginning. What it preserved shaped the course of humanity in ways that history rarely acknowledges. Prepare yourself, for what you are about to hear challenges everything you thought you knew about Noah's Ark and the survival of life itself. When the waters receded and the storm subsided, the world that emerged was not the same as the one before. Life had endured, but only through careful preservation, divine guidance, and perhaps secrets long forgotten. Tonight, we uncover who truly survived the flood and what they carried with them into the new world. The story of survival begins with Noah and his family. In most accounts, they are portrayed as the righteous few, spared from divine wrath. Yet whispers in ancient texts suggest that survival was not merely a reward for virtue. It was part of a meticulous plan, one designed to preserve not only life but knowledge, culture, and the blueprint of civilization itself. The Sumerian texts speak of Utnapishtim and his family, carefully instructed by the gods to gather not only animals but treasures of human ingenuity, seeds, tools, and even written knowledge. The Hebrew Bible emphasizes a covenant between God and Noah, yet the Ark, in these accounts, becomes more than shelter. It is a vessel of continuity, safeguarding the essence of life itself. Across cultures, flood survivors are always portrayed as special. In India, Manu is warned by the Matsya, the fish incarnation of Vishnu, about the impending deluge. He preserves seeds and the lives of select creatures, ensuring that life will flourish again. In the Americas, native flood myths describe humans guided to safety by divine beings, often carrying with them sacred knowledge or relics. Why does the story of survivors repeat so consistently? Could it be that these narratives encode an ancient understanding of continuity and survival? Animals, too, played a critical role. The texts describe pairs of creatures representing every species on Earth, yet modern scholars have long debated the logistics. How could Noah have gathered so many animals? Perhaps, as some researchers suggest, species did not mean every single individual. It may have referred to representative pairs, enough to ensure genetic diversity for future generations. Ancient wisdom may have guided Noah in selecting which life forms to preserve, based on their adaptability, resilience, and significance to human civilization. The Ark, therefore, becomes not just a refuge, but a carefully curated ecosystem. Some theories propose that life was preserved in ways we do not fully understand. Embryonic life, seeds, or genetic material stored with methods long forgotten. The Ark may have been a floating laboratory designed to protect and sustain life through unprecedented catastrophe. But humans were not merely passengers, they were custodians. Noah's family carried the responsibility of repopulating the world, but more than that, they carried knowledge. Whispers of the world speak of tablets, scrolls, and sacred objects hidden within the Ark, containing wisdom about agriculture, medicine, astronomy, and morality. This knowledge, encoded in physical artifacts, may have guided survivors in rebuilding civilizations after the floodwaters withdrew. Some scholars even suggest that the survivors' lineage was carefully planned. Ancient texts hint at interconnections between Noah's descendants and civilizations that arose afterward: the Sumerians, Egyptians, and Indus Valley peoples. Could the flood have been a reset, and the survivors strategically chosen to preserve humanity's most vital knowledge? The idea is not far-fetched. Genetic studies show patterns that suggest population bottlenecks in ancient times, where only small groups of humans survived cataclysmic events. Consider this. Survival required more than physical endurance. It demanded intelligence, planning, and cooperation. Noah's family would have needed to manage water, food, and waste on the ark, to care for countless animals, and to preserve seeds, tools, and knowledge. They were, in essence, the first stewards of a post-flood world, a role that shaped the development of every subsequent civilization. Yet whispers hint at even stranger possibilities. Some ancient texts describe semi-divine beings assisting the survivors, guiding them through the flood, teaching them skills and protecting the ark from natural disasters. Could these beings have been guardians, scientists, or messengers of knowledge? Were the survivors truly human alone, or a collaboration of humans and otherworldly beings, ensuring the continuity of life and wisdom? The animals that survived were not random. Many ancient texts suggest symbolic purposes. Lions, oxen, and birds of flight appear repeatedly, possibly representing strength, endurance, and foresight. Could the selection of animals reflect deeper knowledge about ecosystems and the balance of life? Perhaps the survivors were not only preserving species, but also preserving the relationships and lessons inherent in the natural world. As the floodwaters receded, the survivors faced a changed Earth. Coastlines were different, rivers had shifted, and fertile lands were buried under sediment. They were tasked with not only surviving but adapting to a new world. The Ark had protected them, but it was their knowledge, tools, and wisdom that would allow life to flourish again. Some ancient myths hint that the survivors were given instructions for rebuilding civilization. Agricultural techniques, astronomical knowledge, and social laws were passed down orally, written on tablets, or encoded in rituals. The flood, in this sense, becomes a story not of destruction alone, but of preservation and preparation. Humanity was being given a second chance, but only if it remembered the lessons encoded in survival. Even today, echoes of these survivors' wisdom persist. Religious texts, myths, and folklore often contain practical knowledge disguised as story. Seeds for crops, rituals for seasons, and instructions for community living all trace back to the survivors who emerged from the Ark. Their actions ensured not only biological survival, but cultural continuity, bridging the pre-flood and post-flood worlds. And yet, many mysteries remain. Some texts hint at hidden knowledge that did not survive publicly. Esoteric traditions speak of secrets deliberately concealed, perhaps because humanity was not ready. The Ark, it seems, carried far more than we can see or understand, an inheritance of life, wisdom, and warning, waiting to be rediscovered by those who listen closely to the whispers of history. As you imagine Noah's family stepping onto the new, receding lands, picture the treasures they carried, not gold or jewels, but life itself. Seeds, animals, knowledge, and sacred understanding. Everything humanity needed to survive and flourish again. They were not just survivors, they were custodians of a new world, tasked with remembering the past and guiding the future. If you find these whispers compelling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Whispers of the World, and comment below where you are listening from tonight. Your engagement helps bring these hidden truths back from the shadows, allowing more stories of humanity's past to be revealed. In the next chapter, we will explore hidden truths and ancient technology, the knowledge and possibly advanced methods preserved through the Ark and the survivors. We will uncover secrets that history has rarely acknowledged, secrets that challenge what we think we know about ancient civilizations and their capabilities. Prepare yourself, for the story of the flood is not just about survival. It is about the hidden wisdom carried through time, guiding humanity from the Ark to the present day. The Ark preserved more than life. It preserved secrets, knowledge so profound that the world has tried to forget it. Tonight we uncover the hidden truths and ancient technologies that history rarely reveals, secrets encoded in the Ark, the flood, and the survivors themselves. The story of the Ark is often told as a tale of survival, but a closer look at ancient texts, artifacts, and myths hints at something far more extraordinary. The Ark may have been a repository not just for life, but for knowledge, wisdom that ancient civilizations possessed and that modern humanity has largely lost. This knowledge, encoded in design, structure, and instruction, could explain how a relatively small group of survivors rebuilt civilization in a post-flood world. Consider the dimensions and design of the Ark. Its proportions were precise, almost mathematical, suggesting an understanding of stability, weight distribution, and hydrodynamics. Some scholars argue that these dimensions were not arbitrary, but based on engineering principles lost over millennia. The Ark may have been an early example of applied science, a floating laboratory designed to sustain life, preserve knowledge, and withstand forces far beyond ordinary comprehension. But the story doesn't end there. Ancient texts hint at artifacts carried aboard the Ark, tools, implements, and possibly devices that today would seem advanced or mysterious. Some scholars suggest that these artifacts were not merely practical, they held symbolic and technological significance. In Mesopotamia, cuneiform tablets often accompany flood narratives, hinting at instructions, calculations, and even advanced astronomical knowledge. Could the Ark have carried similar wisdom, encoded for the survivors to use in rebuilding society? Archaeological evidence adds another layer of intrigue. Across the globe, remnants of structures, tools, and even megalithic alignments suggest civilizations far older and more sophisticated than previously believed. Sites such as Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, submerged ruins in the Indian Ocean, and ancient megaliths aligned with celestial bodies all hint at a knowledge of astronomy, engineering, and mathematics that seems beyond the capabilities of the societies that followed. Were these survivors, or those who preserved knowledge from the Ark, responsible for transmitting these technologies? Whispers in esoteric traditions speak of knowledge deliberately hidden. Some texts suggest that the Ark carried instructions for harnessing natural forces, methods for irrigation, agriculture, and construction that would allow humanity to thrive in a world reshaped by the flood. Could these ancient manuals have been encoded in stories, songs, and rituals, disguised to protect humanity from misuse? The Ark may have been not only a vessel of survival, but a vessel of instruction. The concept of hidden technology is not limited to tools. Some myths hint at the use of energy or materials that modern science cannot fully explain. Certain ancient descriptions of the Ark suggest it may have had compartments insulated against decay, systems for water purification, or ways to sustain air quality, rudimentary forms of technology that ensured life could endure for months at sea. While we may not understand the exact mechanisms, the consistent emphasis on practical preservation suggests that ancient builders possessed advanced knowledge far beyond their contemporaries. And then there are the anomalies, artifacts that seem impossible to explain using conventional timelines. From stone tools far older than human civilization as we know it, to advanced metallurgy predating historical records, the whispers of the world suggest that survivors of the flood may have carried this knowledge forward, shaping the course of human development. Could the Ark have been the bridge between a lost prehistoric civilization and the ones that emerged after the flood? Consider the symbolism of animals and plants preserved aboard the Ark. Beyond ensuring survival, they may have served as living laboratories for early genetic understanding. Ancient texts describe careful observation of animal behavior, breeding, and adaptation. Seeds and plants were stored with care, hinting at knowledge of agriculture, botany, and even early forms of genetic preservation. The survivors may have understood principles of life that would not be rediscovered for thousands of years. Whispers also speak of celestial knowledge. Many flood narratives are connected with the stars, planets, and cycles of the heavens. Could the Ark have contained instruments or teachings related to astronomy? Ancient cultures meticulously tracked celestial movements, predicting seasons, floods, and agricultural cycles. The survivors may have preserved astronomical knowledge from the pre-flood world, enabling them to rebuild civilizations aligned with cosmic rhythms. Some theorists even suggest that the Ark carried knowledge of geometry and construction, principles that later civilizations used to build monuments, pyramids, and temples aligned with astronomical events. Could the Ark have been the seed of architectural wisdom, teaching humanity the art of construction, measurement, and alignment? The recurring presence of geometric precision in post-flood structures across the world hints at a continuity of knowledge that the flood itself did not erase. And yet, history has obscured much of this knowledge. Libraries were lost, inscriptions eroded, and records rewritten. The flood may have been a reset, but it was also a deliberate filter, preserving only what was essential. The Ark, in this sense, was not just a boat, it was a vault carrying humanity's survival toolkit, life, knowledge, and secrets too potent or dangerous to leave unguarded. As we trace these hidden truths, one question emerges: why would such knowledge be hidden? Some whispers suggest that humanity was not ready. Certain technologies or understandings may have been too advanced, potentially destructive, or requiring a level of moral and social development not yet achieved. The Ark, therefore, was both a saviour and a teacher, delivering only what could be handled responsibly, encoded in ways that only careful study could decipher. Even today, traces of this knowledge persist. Ancient tablets, megalithic structures, and folklore carry echoes of what was preserved aboard the Ark. They remind us that survival was not just about endurance, but about comprehension. Understanding the forces of nature, the cycles of life, and the principles of construction and governance. The Ark may have been the first classroom for humanity, floating atop the waters, teaching lessons that would echo for millennia. If the whispers of hidden knowledge intrigue you, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Whispers of the World, and comment below where you are listening from tonight. Each interaction helps us uncover more hidden histories and bring long-forgotten truths back into the light. In the next chapter, we will explore the legacy of the flood. Lessons. History wants us to remember. We will examine how these survivors shaped civilizations, preserved knowledge, and left warnings for generations yet to come. The story of the Ark is far from over, and its influence stretches into the very foundations of human history. Prepare yourself, for what you are about to hear will reveal that the flood was not just an event of destruction, but the beginning of a carefully orchestrated transmission of knowledge, life, and wisdom across the ages. When the waters finally receded and the Ark came to rest, the world that emerged was changed forever. Not only had life survived, but the echoes of knowledge, wisdom, and warning carried through time. Tonight we explore the legacy of the flood, the truths history rarely acknowledges, the lessons humanity was meant to remember. The story of the flood is often told as an event of destruction, but its true legacy lies in what survived. Humanity, animals, plants, and knowledge, all preserved by careful planning, guidance, and perhaps divine intervention, form the foundation for civilizations yet to rise. The Ark was more than a lifeboat. It was a vessel of continuity, carrying lessons meant to guide us across millennia. One of the first legacies of the flood is the preservation of moral consciousness. Across cultures, survivors were reminded that life is fragile and that actions carry consequences. The Sumerian tablets, the Hebrew Bible, and countless myths emphasize respect for life, harmony with nature, and the importance of foresight. Humanity was given a second chance, but with responsibility. Survival was not merely physical, it required ethical stewardship, the careful nurturing of both nature and society. But the flood's legacy extends beyond morality. It carries knowledge encoded for posterity. The survivors rebuilt civilization using not just instinct, but the wisdom preserved aboard the Ark. Agricultural practices, architectural techniques, astronomical knowledge, and social structures were all influenced by what had been saved. In this way, the Ark served as a seed vault, not only of life, but of civilization itself. Consider the rise of early cities in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley. Their urban planning, knowledge of irrigation, and astronomical alignment hint at a continuity of understanding that may have roots in the survivors' teachings. Could it be that the flood did not erase history, but rather filtered it, preserving only what was essential for the rebirth of civilization? The whispers of the world suggest this was no accident. Animals too carry a legacy. Species preserved aboard the Ark reintroduced balance to ecosystems. By observing animal behavior, humans learned survival strategies, domestication methods, and ecological harmony. Ancient myths hint that certain animals were preserved for their symbolic and practical value, suggesting an understanding of ecological networks and environmental balance far beyond what history credits to early humans. The flood also reminds us of the importance of adaptation and resilience. Survivors had to adjust to a reshaped world, rivers redirected, coastlines submerged, fertile lands altered. This was not merely a test of physical endurance, it was a test of ingenuity. Humanity learned to build, cultivate, and thrive in the aftermath of disaster. These lessons echo today as we confront environmental challenges, climate changes, and global crises. The story of the Ark urges us to remember that survival depends not just on strength, but on intelligence, foresight, and unity. And yet, some lessons are hidden, encoded in myths, symbols, and structures left behind. Ancient civilizations often encoded flood narratives in art, architecture, and ritual, preserving knowledge in forms accessible only to those who could interpret them. From pyramid alignments to sacred texts, the survivors left clues that the flood was not the end but a beginning, a reset, a chance to start anew with wisdom intact. Whispers of the world suggest that the flood carried a warning for future generations. The deluge was not just punishment, but a message. Disregard for the balance of life, arrogance, and ignorance can lead to catastrophe. The Ark, as both refuge and repository, preserved the tools to survive, but humanity was expected to learn from the past. The flood, in this sense, is as much prophecy as history, a lesson still relevant today. Perhaps the greatest legacy is humanity's capacity to remember and interpret history. The survivors carried stories orally, recorded them on tablets, and encoded them in myths. Over centuries, details were altered, lessons obscured, and mysteries deepened. Yet fragments remain, whispers waiting to be heard by those willing to listen closely. The Ark, the flood, and the survivors' wisdom challenge us to look beyond the obvious, question accepted narratives, and uncover the truths history has tried to hide. Even modern science, archaeology, and genetics hint at these truths. Population bottlenecks, sudden shifts in civilizations, and unexplained artifacts all point to events that shaped humanity's path. While mainstream history may treat the flood as legend, evidence persists that life and knowledge endured through extraordinary means. The Ark was not merely a story, it was a vessel of continuity, a reminder that humanity's survival depends on understanding, preserving, and learning. As we reflect on this legacy, consider the parallels to our world today. We face challenges of survival, morality, and environmental stewardship. The flood story teaches us that preservation of life, knowledge, and wisdom is not passive. It requires foresight, collaboration, and care. The Ark was a model, demonstrating that even in the face of overwhelming catastrophe, life can endure when guided by wisdom. And finally, the whispers urge us to remember the hidden truths. History is rarely complete. Knowledge is often concealed, waiting for those with patience, curiosity, and courage to uncover it. The Ark preserved life, but it also preserved secrets encoded in design, instruction, and myth, challenging us to decipher them. Those who listen carefully may discover insights that could guide humanity through future floods, literal and metaphorical, yet to come. If these hidden truths resonate with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Whispers of the World, and comment below where you are listening from tonight. Every engagement helps bring long-forgotten wisdom back to light. keeping the legacy of the Ark alive in our collective memory. As we close this story, imagine the Ark resting on the mountainside, silent but potent, a vessel that carried life, knowledge, and responsibility. Picture the survivors stepping into a new world, bearing wisdom and hope, shaping civilizations for generations to come. The flood was not the end, it was a beginning. A lesson that continues to whisper across time, urging us to remember, to preserve, and to act wisely. The story of Noah's Ark is more than legend. It is a mirror reflecting our potential, our responsibility, and the hidden truths that guide humanity. Listen closely, for the whispers of the world are never truly silenced.